Hi Shepherd's Pie, greetings from the Philippines. Welcome back to the channel for a beer and a chat. Well, it's not a beer and a chat, it is an interview. We are down sideways and we're going to have a little chat with my new friend James, who is a very interesting chap. I met him last week. He's a long time subscriber and he has been kind enough to sit down and do an interview with us. And his name is, would you believe it, James Cook. And it really is James Cook. He's an explorer, he's an adventurer, and he's in Dumaguete. So first of all, thanks for sitting down, James. It's very kind of you.
You're welcome.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, mate. Where are you from? Where did it all begin?
Glasgow, Scotland. On the south side of Glasgow. That's where I was born and raised before I went to the United States. Went to school there. Team Celtic, of course. Just won the league, I believe.
The only team in Scotland.
That's right. And that's where I grew up. I grew up in Glasgow, Scotland.
What was it like growing up in Glasgow?
It was rough sometimes. It was rough. I come from a part of Glasgow that was then, and maybe now, I'm not so sure now, but then was considered quite a rough part of town.
Well, it has a reputation for being a very tough city. Is it a warranted reputation? I mean, does it deserve it?
It's better now, but when I was growing up there in the 1970s and early 80s, yes, that was warranted, yes, for sure.
You came through it okay?
Yeah.
So what did you do when you left school? Was it a big family to start with, a big family, or?
No, it was just me, my brother and my two older sisters, my older brother and two sisters, and my father died when I was 12 of asbestosis.
Oh wow.
Because he worked in the shipyards in Glasgow. As a lagger, and so it was just me, my two sisters, my brother and my mother. After that I went through school, went to Catholic school in Glasgow, Lord Secondary School, and then after that I got an apprenticeship in sheet metal work and insulation with my brother, who had started a small company, and he managed to get me into the union because my father had been in that union and all our friends and my uncles had been in that union. My brother-in-law was in that union, all his brothers. It was a kind of, family thing, to get into. So they got me into the union. I served my apprenticeship there, my 4-year apprenticeship, and I continued to work in Glasgow and the surrounding areas for a number of years.
Did you enjoy it?
No, I hated it actually.
Oh really?
Yeah, I hated that work. I did not like it at all. It was hot, dusty, uncomfortable, difficult,
Was the money good? Or?
The money was better than average, actually, because of the conditions.
So it's a typical working class job?
Yeah, very much so, very much so. And what we did was we went to the pub after, lunchtime, went to the pub after drinking. The weekend began on a Thursday night, and sometimes ended on a Monday night.
So this is unusual because you're the first Celtic supporter I've met that's a Catholic, and you're the first Scotsman I met that likes to drink.
Very unusual. So so I worked at that trade until I went to the United States, actually, until I was about 23.
So you did that until you were 23, and then you went over to the States. Why did you end up in the States?
My oldest sister, had went there to work as a nanny, and she told me to come visit her. She had actually went there originally in New York with a friend of hers. Both of them, her and her girlfriend, went over there to work as nannies, and they were in New York for a couple of years doing that. And then she moved. Her husband was coming over to America to be with her. Not her husband, her boyfriend. But they had actually been in school together when they were 5 years old. Same primary school. Me and my brothers and sisters all went to the same primary school, same secondary school. All through school together. And they grew up together. Her and her now husband, they're still married. They've been married, 40 some years. He was coming over to America to be with her. So she moved to Los Angeles, before he came. And then after he arrived over there, she told me, come and visit me, see what it's like. It's good over here, you might like it. And I did. I went and visited her, and I never went back. I went back for visits, every couple of years, what have you. But I made that my permanent home there in Los Angeles.
And whereabouts in Los Angeles?
I was originally in Santa Monica, West LA, Venice, that area.
Right.
And she was a bit further out near Orange County. But most of the expats at that time in Los Angeles were based around Santa Monica, West LA, you know, that kind of thing.
And the lawyer that she was working for, did he have any famous clients?
Yeah, Vincent Sciano was his name, and he was an immigration attorney in New York, and his client was John Lennon.
So he told me that before we did the video. I've got to get that in. Yeah, John Lennon's lawyer. There you go.
During the time he was having immigration problems, and they were trying to deport him. And I guess it was in the late 70s, early 80s, I guess.
So did you fall in love with Los Angeles, or was it a case of you weren't happy in Glasgow? Was it a bit of both?
No, I really loved. I loved Los Angeles. It was exciting. It was the movie business, and I played guitar since I was a little kid. You know, still do. Los Angeles was a lot of musicians, a lot of movie people. You know, just a lot of things going on in it.
An exciting vibe.
It was a very exciting vibe then. Yeah.
Presumably this would have been in the 70s, would it? Late 70s?
No. This was my time in Los Angeles was about 1989.
Oh wow! I put some age on you. There you go. Sorry, I
From
didn't.
89 onward.
Okay.
You know?
I'm getting a bit confused here now because
well, I went in 86 first, and then I went back. You know.
Right.
But I stayed mostly permanently from 89 onward.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at what age were you when you actually moved to Los Angeles?
First time 23.
23. Okay. And what were you doing for work when you were over there?
I worked at the same trade over there.
Okay.
The sheet metal work, you know, the insulation. I worked at the same trade. I did that until that was about, say, from 89. I worked that to about 9 years, and then I get into the software. You know.
Software?
Yeah. Software.
That's a big jump. How did that happen then?
Well, the internet was just coming around about 1999. In fact, the first time that Network Solutions released domain names to the public was in September 1999.
Right.
And I knew that was coming, and so did some other people, and we were sitting in an apartment in Los Angeles with 3 Mac G3s, the old beige Macs. We had 3 of them set up, ready to go, and as soon as Network Solutions released the domains to the public, because before that you couldn't get, if you remember public, you couldn't register a domain name. You couldn't do that, you know, had to go through a lot of steps. But in September 1989 they released them to the public for the first time. So we were sitting there waiting, you know. At the time you could register it and you didn't have to pay for it immediately. They gave you 3 months to make payment. Right. And it was $6, I believe, per domain. So we registered tens of thousands of them.
Wow.
And then we started selling. I started selling. Well, I sold Scottish Television to Scottish Television, Shetland.org to the Shetland government.
That's a very good, by the time I got in that kind of stuff, it was all long gone. You couldn't do that anymore.
Sold another good one is Informational Genomics. I sold that to Craig Vinter, the genomics team.
Right. Wow.
Many of them.
So how did you train then for your new career? Was that all done self-taught?
It was all self-taught. There were no courses, no software courses at all at that time. There was nothing in schools, nothing in colleges. There was nothing. It was just, you know, there was a program called Dreamweaver, which was a software program. Was it Adobe? I can't remember who released it. It might have been Adobe, I can't remember. But you could put together basic HTML sites with it. You know, at that time there was no e-commerce transactions. None. The first people ever to put e-commerce were Yahoo, with the Yahoo stores. And they done that in 1998, around that time. There was no e-commerce then. You know, so once the software came out, Dreamweaver, and it was expensive, but I got it and I started learning how to use this software to put together HTML sites, you know, like brochure sites for travel agencies, small businesses, stuff like that. And I did that for like 5 years, 4 years, from 99 to 2003. And in 2003 a guy called Harold De Leon in Berlin released the first iteration of OS Commerce. And OS Commerce was the first open source transactional software, right, where you could do transactions. You know, you could buy and sell. It would take credit card payments. It would do multi-currency, multilingual. So he released that, and I was on the open source team, if you like. It was open source. It was voluntary to further build that out, build out the plugins, the extensions, and what have you. You know, bells and whistles of OS Commerce, and I worked on OS Commerce for 5 years. But I also built transactional websites for companies that were selling products that used that software, you know, that platform.
So it was all groundbreaking stuff you were doing. Like, you know, you were on the edge, as they say,
very
at the
so.
tech edge.
Yeah.
Wow.
Very, very at the beginning, yeah. And then the next iteration of that was a company called Varian out of Los Angeles, Pico Boulevard originally, and a guy called Roy Rubin. They released a software in 2008 called Magento.
Right.
And it solved a lot of problems that we had with OS Commerce. Like, how do I explain it? OS, you could do multi-store with Magento. You could have a store that sold shoes, you could have a store that sold hats, all under the one platform. You didn't need 3 stores,
Yeah.
you know, and it would all use the same transactional capabilities, you know, the same languages. You could have a store in, say, a shoe store in Swedish, and you could have a hat store in German.
Yeah, right.
Or you could have each store multilingual, you know, Spanish, Italian, English, whatever. And you could also do multi-currency, you know. For each store, you could, at that time, before the EU, well, the euro didn't exist at that time, it was the Deutschmark for the Germans. So you could have your currency in Deutschmark, you could tie that into a currency exchange that would do the transactional rate for you, so that you would know it would get the correct checkout total, you know, like that. So, and Magento subsequently became, that was released, the first Magento 1.0 was released in 2008, and the first, subsequently became the world's largest e-commerce platform. But Roy Rubin and Varian, because they didn't have enough hands on deck at the beginning to really build out this platform, because it's a huge platform, they brought it to the open source community and says, will you guys work on this with us? So they kept part of it like private, and then there was a version that was open source for guys like me who was an open source developer. So we worked on that, and what you would do is you would build a plugin or an extension for it, the community would test it, and then you would release it for free to the public. So say Joe Blow, who was using Magento for his widget store in San Francisco, you know, he would take that plugin, download it, install it on his store, and he gets to use it, you know, for free.
So, because I've used WordPress when I've made sites myself in the past businesses I've had.
Yeah, WordPress.
What's fascinating about these open sources is how you're making your money then. If you're doing everything open source and you're giving it away for free, how are you making your income from an open source platform?
Well, developers do it because they can then be hired by the people who own these stores. You know,
Right, okay.
You know, and WordPress wasn't transactional at the beginning, anyway.
No, but I'm just saying that's an open source platform.
Sure,
Like,
it's transactional now.
Yeah.
I believe they integrated WooCommerce into it, if I remember. But at the time, to answer your question, how you do that is, I build a plugin. Some guy who owns a widget store, a guy in New York, whatever, and he uses my plugin, then he might need other work done on his store, or he might want changes to the plugin, customized changes to that plugin that you've built.
Okay.
So he comes to you, so you get work through it, you know.
So in layman's terms, like you give someone a boiler, but it's going to need to be maintained, it's going to need to be advanced or whatever, and you're the man who's going to do.
Might need new pipes, it might need insulation, it might need a new valve.
Yeah. You're going to keep doing it because it's your boiler.
Sure,
and it's like
sure.
Okay, that's interesting. That makes sense. Sure. So in all this time, were you always independent, or did you work for any companies?
I worked for many companies. I was independent. I worked both as a contractor and as an employee. In fact, I only finished working last November.
Okay, that's fascinating. But you have moved around, haven't you? Because it's amazing what you were saying, but you moved around the States a few places as well, didn't you?
I've been in almost every state. I worked in lots of different states. Worked in Denver, Chicago.
So all this time you were doing this, you were moving from different state to state to state.
Because back then remote work wasn't really possible in the way it is today, you know. But recently my last gig was for a company in California in Chatsworth, and I worked remotely for them from the East Coast, and they're on the West Coast, you know. My gig before that I also did remotely. It was a company out of San Francisco, Molecule, they make air purifiers. I was doing Magento work for them. I was the lead Magento developer. Before that I worked in-house in Irvine, California for a company called 511 Tactical, and their e-commerce platform was several $100 million a year in transactions. It was huge, and I was the lead Magento developer in-house 5 days a week, you know, and I worked there for 18 months.
So which was
until COVID, and then
So
they let us all go.
Which was the best job in terms of like the best state that you lived in and your happiest period in the States?
Well, probably that's a good question. Probably the ones where I worked at home. Yeah, probably those ones. Because
so there wasn't one city or one state you fell in love with and thought this is the best place.
Denver was kind of good, but it get cold in the winter. That's what put me off it, you know. Because I come from Scotland, and we used to walk to school in short pants, you know, and the snow would be up to here. It was horrible.
So you weren't snowboarding and all that?
No,
like, you know?
no.
I thought that's what programmers and website people did, like, you know.
No, I don't like the cold. That's why I'm here. But Denver was good, but I just didn't like the weather there, you know. So I liked my time in mostly in Los Angeles. You know, I liked the people there. The money was good. There was a lot of because Silicon Valley is not that far away, so there was a lot of technology companies, people looking for. It was easy to get work. As a Magento guy, you know, there wasn't that many Magento guys around really. They had the kind of experience I had because I started in 2008, right at the beginning. You know, a lot of people jumped on the
Silicon Valley wasn't really a thing in the 80s and 90s. It became. When did it become a thing, Silicon Valley?
Really, after e-commerce took off, really, I would say around 2006, 2007, 2008. You know, like Magento came around 2008, and it kind of blew up after that. You know, in the following years. Before that, there was only OS Commerce that I knew of. There was Yahoo Stores. You know, they sold that for 50. The guy that built that sold it to them for 50 million. But what happened with Magento was Roy Rubin and Varian, they sold that to eBay Inc. for $20 million, the software, the private side of it. The open source side of it has always existed ever since. Even to this day, you can go download Magento open source and use it, you know, for free. But eBay Inc. bought it for $20 million. They didn't think it fit into their game plan well enough. They sold it to Primark Partners, I believe, a year later or 2 years later for $200 million.
I was going to say 20 million doesn't sound a lot, but
no,
it was not. It was a
steal.
Right.
And actually what happened after that was Primark Partners sold Magento to Adobe for $1.5 billion.
Wow.
Go look it up.
Oh no, I believe it now, because you look at the values of some of these companies, this goes for $1 billion and then they sit on it and all the rest of it, like, you know.
Probably the reason Adobe paid so much for that was because they were looking for something they could integrate into their suite of products that was e-commerce, or e-commerce platform. Salesforce was a big competitor. You know, Salesforce are big today. So they were kind of looking, what are we going to do? We've got to do something here with these guys, you know. So, and as it turns out, they did. They paid that amount of money for it, they got it, they integrated it into their suite of products. But I don't really think it worked out for them that well. Because what happened was a company called Shopify came in under the radar at the beginning, and they kind of took over the e-commerce space.
Shopify.
You know, because what they were doing, if you want to build a real big platform, you can't do it with Shopify. It's limited in a lot of ways. You know? So you got to go with something like Magento, Salesforce. But for the average small business, Shopify has enough bells and whistles where you don't need a huge platform like Magento. It's very technical, very complex. You need good developers. You know, it's not point and click. You know, it's code. You know, it's GitHub.
It's fascinating. I'm not really a technical person. I'm trying to be, but I'm struggling. That's why I take my hat off to you that you could adapt so quickly and go into those things. But I cut you dead a minute ago. I didn't mean to, but I'm not the best at interviewing. I get a question in my mind and then I realise after I've asked it, I should have picked back on that. COVID, what was that like? And you said you all got laid off. COVID must have been a bad period then.
Yeah, it was. As soon as it was in May 2020, I was working in-house for 511 Tactical, and all of a sudden, one day they just went, we're shutting everything. We're shutting it down, you know. Everybody's getting let go. And they did even let go of my butt. You know?
So there was no sick pay or no, like, we're going to, I can't remember what the term was.
They got unemployment money.
Oh, you got
You know, the government gave us unemployment money. But that was it. They just come in one day and said, hey, it's all over. And I was working in-house for them. What they did was they went to at-home work for, I think, 6 weeks or something. Up until May, and then in May they just went, because that company also had about 100 brick and mortar stores throughout the United States, and in Sweden, and in some other places, you know, in I believe Hong Kong and Taiwan. They had stores all over the place, and they had 17,000 products, but they had to close every store.
Wow.
You know? So they were panicking too. Who could blame them, right? So they let everybody go. Everybody.
So what was it like being in the States during COVID?
It was strange. It was strange. It felt very Patrick McGowan, you know, the prisoner. It felt very like that. It very kind of what's the word? I don't know. Very dystopian. It felt strange because you would go out, nobody in the street. You know, weird.
Depending on the state.
Well, yeah.
In some states they weren't wearing masks and they were all running to the street.
They were pretty heavy-handed in Los Angeles, in the north, particularly in Orange County where I was living at the time. You know, they're a very conservative area of Los Angeles.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And they were particularly heavy-handed on it. You know, you couldn't go out, you couldn't do this, couldn't do that. You know, it was difficult.
So what's the biggest difference then you found in it? Because how long were you living in the States for? You became a citizen, didn't you?
Yeah, many years. I can't even remember when I became a citizen. I would say I became a citizen maybe in the mid-90s, late 90s.
Okay. And was that an easy process or was it difficult?
Yeah, it was very easy. It was very, I think being British, you know, having a high school education, a clean record, yeah, it was basically
Did you have to learn about the culture and all that?
Yeah, you had to learn a lot. But I knew all this stuff. I know you had to learn. They give you a questionnaire, you know, and I think that you have to get like 70% right or something. You know, who was the first president? You know, how many states are there in the union? Just basic questions, you know.
But you are still British.
Yes, the British government don't recognise other citizenships, so you're always British to them.
This is the thing I've never understood about this, because you can explain this to me, because as I understand it, as far as if you ever got a British passport, you can have other passports.
Yes.
Because they recognise you're British, and that's it. But I've read many times, I've been told by people, if you become an American citizen, you've got to relinquish your other passports. No, you can't have both. Is that not right?
That is not true. No, the United Kingdom recognise dual citizenship. They do. So do the Philippines.
Yeah, but I'm saying the United States don't, do they? As far as the United States are concerned, you can only be an American citizen. You can't have other nationalities.
Yeah.
So how does that work then?
Well, because they don't need to. They tell you if you have to travel on your American passport.
Yeah, exactly. So as far as they're concerned, you're not British anymore.
You're not British anymore.
Exactly. That's what I was getting at. Yeah. It's
as far as the British government is concerned, you'll always be British.
Yeah.
You know, the king always owns you. You're always a subject.
So it's a big question, this one. What was the biggest difference you think between living in Scotland and living in America culturally? Which is different. I know, because I lived in America for a while and I've travelled around that. And to me, it always amazes me America as a country, because the states are so bloody different and the personalities and that. To me, it's like 50 countries all in. It's not. You know, I'm getting at.
Yeah, they are very, very different. You know, my biggest problem I had when I moved there was my accent. People could not understand what I was saying, because I went there.
What was that?
People couldn't.
No, I'm joking.
They couldn't understand what I was saying, you know, because I had a full Glaswegian accent. Alright, wee man, know that. How you doing? You know, we did the pub for a drink. It was very difficult.
I'll let you know a little secret. That's been my problem. Every country I've gone to in the world, no one can understand me.
So that was
in the same boat.
Biggest problem. Also, another big problem was drinking. You had to drive everywhere, so you couldn't, you know, taking taxis was expensive, but you didn't want to get arrested for drink driving, you know. So that was always a problem, trying to get out at the weekend and things like that. I didn't like that. There was no buses, you know, no buses in LA. Maybe better today, but back then, no.
Well, I love, my favourite state is my two favourite states are California and Florida. I love Key West. I love San Diego. I love San Francisco. I never liked Los Angeles. So there you go. It's like, you know, horses for courses.
It just depends, you know. Depends. Maybe because that's where I landed, really, and I kind of grew up there, sort of.
That's easier first.
West LA, really, where I hung around mostly. You know, Bundy, down Venice, Southern Rose, down that area, Santa Monica. You know, on the Santa Monica Promenade.
So you're an American citizen now.
Yeah.
And you are still a British citizen.
Yeah.
But you're in the Philippines.
I am.
And you're planning, I know, on coming here long term very shortly.
Yeah.
But what were your experiences of the Philippines up until now? Have you been here many times, or what's the score with the Philippines?
I've been here 2 times before in the past.
Only 2 times?
Yeah, this is my 3rd visit in the past few years. Well, the reason I come here is because I'm looking for somewhere to retire to. I don't want to live in the East Coast in the United States in the winter time, you know?
Right.
It's very cold, it gets dark, you know, 18 hours a day it's dark in the winter, it's cold. And you know, American culture is very individualistic. Like, the neighbours don't really talk to each other.
Yeah, right.
Very much so, yeah. There's not as great sense of community. Maybe that's partly enhanced because I'm a foreigner there too. See, I'm not just a foreigner here, I'm a foreigner in the United States as well, because I got an accent. People know I'm not from there right away, you know.
Right.
I can't pretend I'm American, you know. Even though it's a great country and it was good to me, I'm still always an outsider, you know. So it's that is less in the bigger cities, of course, like New York or Los Angeles. But right now I'm in Pennsylvania, and it's not totally rural, but it's smaller. There's not huge cities, you know. And the people there are mostly from Pennsylvania. They don't hear many foreign accents.
So the Amish are, isn't it?
Huh?
The Amish.
They're there too.
Yeah.
I see them every day when I'm there.
Really? Yes,
Yeah,
I hear them.
yeah, I do, yeah, I see them every day.
Well, they're foreigners.
Well, sort of, yeah, they're like Germans, right? But so that's why I came here. I'm looking for somewhere that I can retire. It's a good cost of living. It's got a good climate. The people are friendly, and the visas aren't too bad. You know, and it's really that simple. You know?
So your heart's set on the Philippines. Well, I know you're doing it. You said so. We'll talk about in a minute what your steps are to doing that. But where have you been in the Philippines first? Then you were 2 times. Where did you go?
I've been in Manila, Cebu. I was in Leyte, in Tacloban, Oslob. Been Dumaguete before. Where else? Siquijor. Where else? I think that's about it.
Okay. But your heart is now set on Dumaguete, or that's the place you're going to try?
I think this is about the best that I've seen. I haven't seen that many places, of course, but I think this is probably about the best. And also, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. Other people have come here, like yourself. Other people I've seen on videos too, and they say, "Hey, this is a good place," you know. So they're doing the research for me in a way.
I have never said it's a good place to come. Just to clarify, I said it's an okay place to come.
Okay.
I don't want to get blamed for anyone. No, because I like it.
Yeah.
But I always worry that I'm painting a false picture and people will come here because of what you say. You know what I mean?
I was just going to bring that up. The reason I agreed to do an interview with you on the channel, I got a lot of good information off of your channel. And I looked at other channels, and what I really liked about yours was the authenticity. You're not trying to make the sale. You're not trying to paint a picture that isn't real. And I really like that. You know?
That's very nice of you to say, so I'm glad I asked that question.
I really mean that. I do, really. Because a lot of other vlogs I've watched, other people, they're trying to make the sale, you know? And they're kind of trying to smooth out the rough edges and, you know, make it out to be. They're not outright lying, I don't mean that.
I know, yeah.
But they're trying to paint it a little brighter than what it is, you know? And you don't do that. And
I think, to be fair, some of the people that do that, and there are some, and I don't knock them for it, I often wonder if they're trying to convince themselves or other people, you know.
Could be. I watched your videos, and anybody that's watching this, some of Simon's past videos, speaking of Asia, a lot of good information were in your videos. So I'll give you an example. One video you made a while back is when you got a traffic ticket.
Oh, okay.
And you went over through it, what you'd have to deal with it, how you go down to the place to pay it, and how much it costs, and what the deal is. You know, that's gold for people coming here. You know, they don't know how to do that. You did a lot of videos on how to get the immigration, how to open a bank
we should
account.
stop now because my head will get so big I can't go through the door. But anyway, it's very nice of you to say.
You had a lot of good information about how to open a bank account, and you know, and what to do, what not to do. It was valuable.
Well, frankly, I'm glad. It's very nice to hear that. That's why I do the channel. So what? Obviously, you're impressed with Dumaguete because you're planning on moving it permanently. But has anything surprised you about the place? Is it anything like that's better or worse, or you know, what is it about? Since forget who told you, you know, why you came here. What do you think about it? I mean, I can
tell you. What I like about this place is, there's a kind of, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of poverty here, you know, but people here are friendly. They're nice. They're happy, even if they have a little. They're happy. They're not out to get you, you know. They would help you rather than hurt you. And there's an energy here. There's an energy that you see here. And I just like the vibe of the place, you know. I just like it. I think it's And Dumaguete's a kind of family town. It's not a party town at all. I think there's only one nightclub. You know, I've never been in it, but
There's 5. I'll take you to them, yeah.
Okay.
But that's just where the Westerners go. The Filipino ones are better.
I thought there was only one, so I don't know much. But it's more of a family town than a party town, you know? It's not like bar girls and bars everywhere, you know? And I like that. I'm just looking for a quiet life. I'm not interested in it. I went to Thailand, I didn't go to Pattaya, you know?
I won't take you then.
You know? So I'm just looking for a quiet life, you know, and I think this would fit the bill, where I can live on the cost of living and my social security, which I'll be getting soon, and you can travel a little bit here too. The islands are close, you know.
It is good. It is a good base. It is a good base point. So, what are the plans now then? I mean, so you decided you're going to move here. You've been here.
Yeah.
You've spent a couple of weeks. You said you're going to go back to the States. What are you going to do in the States, and when are you coming over here?
Well, I came here just to be 100% sure, you know, because I've been here before. I said I want to go back and just make sure, you know, because places change. And I decided, okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to the United States. I'm going to finish off. I'm renovating a property over there that I own. It's really for my kids, but I'll be able to rent it out, and I expect to have that completed by November. And
I've never asked you about your kids. How many kids have you got?
2.
In America or in
Los Angeles. My son's at college there, and my daughter's just about to leave high school.
There you go. So you got married in the States?
Soon. Yeah, to a Polish lady. Yeah, and I was married for 23 years.
Wow. I'm getting rusty. I should have picked that one out earlier on. Anyway, you didn't go down that. Maybe you didn't want to talk about it anyway.
I've been unmarried for almost 6 years.
Okay. So
yeah, but I have a good relationship with my kids too. You know,
that's nice.
Talk to them all, and hopefully they'll come and visit too. So I'm going to go back and finish fixing up this place, this house, and then I'll be free to come here. And I'm really looking forward to it. I've been working on this house for a long time, and I'm glad to get that behind me. And I'm looking forward to having a slow pace of life. That's another thing I really like about this part of Dumaguete and the Philippines in general, is the slow pace of life. There's nothing in a hurry here. People take their time.
Well, that is true. That is very true, yes.
And I love that. I just love that. I'm not the kind of person that's like, why is this line taking so long? That's not me. I'm like, well, no big deal. You know, I like that. I like the slow pace. You know?
No, but if that's what you're looking for, you will find it in Dumaguete. Yeah.
Because I came from a place where it was like, boom, 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 get it done, hurry up. Who's next? You know, why am I waiting here? Give me fast food. Everything's fast. You know? And that just drives me crazy.
Yeah, no. I think. I'll be honest with you now. I've met you. Well, I met you the other night, and we had a little chat before we did the video and that. I think you will do all right here, and I'm sure if it's not for you, you will find somewhere in the Philippines. Because to be honest with you, there are some people I sit down and I have a chat with, and they are bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and you think, I hope it works out, but I'm not quite sure they really know what they let or the mistake. You know what I'm getting at. There's making certain things, but I do not get that vibe from you. I think you will be a very welcome addition to the Dumaguete community, mate. I think you've got things quite mapped out. So when will you be coming?
Mid-November, I think.
Mid-November.
I don't know an exact date at the moment. You know.
You'll be here for Christmas.
Yes, hopefully. Yeah.
Well, I won't get too excited. Not much goes on here at Christmas.
That's fine by me.
Town closes.
That's fine by me, man. That's okay. You know. I think it must be. If you come, let me just say this. One last thing I want to put in there. If you come from a small town, say in Kansas or Missouri, Nevada, and you've never really been outside of the United States, it's going to be very difficult to adapt here. You know, because there's such a difference in culture. But you know, I was an immigrant anyway, even in America. You know, and I've been in a lot of other countries too, and I've also lived in a lot of parts of the United States. I've travelled a lot there, so it's going to be easier for me to adapt long term in a place like this. It's different because I've been an expat for basically my whole adult life. You know.
Yeah. No, exactly, and you will adapt it because I know from just talking to you without getting in any trouble. You're not someone who's chasing a dream. A lot of people come here who are chasing this dream. They're going to fall in love with this perfect woman. They're going to build this house. And they're going to do all these things.
No.
And when you chase dreams,
that's not me.
You know what I mean? Exactly, it's not you. You're coming here for a relaxed, quiet life, no pressure, no stress. If that's what you're looking for, Dumaguete is a good place.
I believe so.
Get a generator and
I believe so.
Will you do any work on the side? Will you carry on doing your computer things or whatever, or will you just be completely...
Yeah, I've been basically left my last employment last November, end of October.
I mean, do you aspire to, when you get it, are you going to just knock it on the head and just do nothing, or are you thinking you might do something, keep your hand in to keep yourself busy? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm open to the idea. I'm having specifically have that on my agenda, but I'm open to that idea. Maybe, why not? You know, I'm gonna have to look into see what kind of visa I'm gonna get here. Am I gonna get the retirement visa? You know, or am I gonna wait? And be honest, I don't want to break the law. You know, it's not a good idea to break the law here. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm open to that, yeah, sure. And it's easy because I can work remotely anywhere in the world. And also the Philippine government have just released a digital nomad visa.
Yeah.
You know, the terms of it aren't that great, but they'll change over time. They'll tweak it, make it easier, what have you. Of course they will. So that may be an option too.
Well, I wish you the best of luck, James. I've enjoyed this interview. I have just wait till the old Hell's Angel leaves. I enjoyed that interview. It was very interesting, mate. I'm sure if any of the subscribers are technically minded, they'll love it. I'm sure anyone who's not will love it anyway, because you're an interesting chap.
Thank you.
And thanks very much for sitting down with us, mate. It's much appreciated.
Thank you. You're more than welcome. I appreciate you and your channel, and I've learned a lot from you.
I'm starting to blush. No, but seriously, James, it's great meeting you, and I'm sure we will meet again. But I really appreciate the interview, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, you know what to do. Smash the like button. If you haven't subscribed, well, I'm disappointed. I'm almost heartbroken. But you can change that. You can subscribe and make me happy. But whether you do, whether you don't, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, stay safe and be lucky.